The desperate alliance, the grand conclave of the Galactic Alliance, had never been so silent. 300 representatives from across the known galaxy sat in a chamber designed for debate and diplomacy, yet no one spoke. On the massive holographic display dominating the center of the hall, another world vanished in a flash of light. Nixara, home to 16 billion souls, gone in an instant. High Chancellor Zarin of the Altari, her translucent skin pulsing with the blue light of anxiety, finally broke the silence. That's the seventh world this cycle. Our strongest defenses, our most advanced technologies, useless. She gestured to the battle footage replaying above them all. We don't even understand what we're fighting. The threat had emerged from beyond the galactic rim 3 months ago, a swarm of crystalline ships that moved like liquid shadows through space. They didn't communicate, didn't negotiate, and didn't take prisoners. They simply arrived, consumed, and disappeared, leaving behind nothing but cosmic dust where planets once orbited. The Scintillans have named them the Void, said Commander Tevral, his carapace clicking anxiously as he addressed the assembly. Appropriate given how they seem to consume everything in their path, including energy itself. Ambassador Zenda, an ancient being of living light contained in an environment, suit hovered forward. We've lost 1/3 of our combined fleet. Our most powerful weapons are absorbed before making contact. If we continue as we are, projections indicate total alliance collapse within 60 rotations. Murmurs of fear rippled through the chamber. There is one option we haven't considered, said Archivist Mila, her voice barely above a whisper. All eyes turned to the small, gray-furred being who rarely spoke during these proceedings. Archivists observed and recorded. They didn't suggest policy. Speak, Archivist, urged Zarin. Mila activated her personal console, and a new image appeared above the assembly. A blue-green world wrapped in swirling white clouds, orbiting an unremarkable yellow star in the galactic backwater. Earth, she said simply. The chamber erupted in protests. The forbidden, shouted one representative. They were quarantined for a reason, cried another. High Chancellor Zarin raised her hands for silence. Archivist Mila, you know the history as well as any of us. Earth was sealed behind the Great Barrier 3 centuries ago after the Valkyrian conflict. They violated every principle of civilized warfare. They also won, Mila replied quietly. When every advanced civilization in the Alliance couldn't stop the Valkyrian horde, humans did the impossible. At what cost? Growled Ambassador Krell of the Draconian Collective. They unleashed weapons that twisted reality itself. They broke fundamental laws of physics in ways we still don't understand. The quarantine was for our protection, not theirs. And yet, Mila continued, undeterred, they respected our decision. They didn't protest when we built the Great Barrier around their solar system. They simply went silent. The hologram shifted to show a massive energy field encircling an entire star system. The Great Barrier, the most sophisticated containment technology ever created, designed not to keep humans in but to keep their dangerous ideas from spreading outward. We've monitored them, of course, Mila continued. Our long-range scanners detect significant activity within their system, but the barrier prevents detailed observation. What we do know is they've continued to advance technologically, perhaps far beyond our understanding. Commander Tevral's antennae twitched nervously. You're suggesting we breach the quarantine, contact the humans, and ask for their help? I'm suggesting we have no choice, Mila replied. The Void will reach the core worlds within days. After that, it's only a matter of time before they discover Earth as well. At least this way, we give ourselves and possibly humanity a fighting chance. The debate raged for hours. Old fears warred with new desperation. Finally, High Chancellor Zarin called for a vote. The result was narrow but clear. They would contact Earth. A special communication array was prepared, designed to penetrate the Great Barrier with a simple message. To Earth Command, this is High Chancellor Zarin of the Galactic Alliance. An existential threat approaches. We request your assistance. The quarantine can be lifted. Please respond. The message was sent. Then they waited. For 3 days, silence. Some began to wonder if humans still existed at all. Perhaps they had destroyed themselves, as many had predicted centuries ago. On the 4th day, the Great Barrier flickered, just once, and a response came through. Message received. Stand by. Nothing more. Stand. By? That's it? Ambassador Krell snarled. 3 centuries of isolation, and that's all they have to say? Perhaps they're deliberating as we did, suggested Zarin, though her voice lacked conviction. They didn't have to wait long for clarification. 12 hours later, monitoring stations across the Alliance reported a massive energy surge from within, the Great Barrier. The containment field, technology that had stood impervious for 3 centuries, simply dissolved, like ice under a sun. And then, silence again. No ships emerged, no further communications arrived. The Earth system stood, open to the galaxy for the first time in centuries, yet nothing happened. Perhaps they're waiting for a formal invitation, muttered Krell sarcastically. Or perhaps, said Mila, her eyes fixed on her monitors, they're already here. Before anyone could question her meaning, alarms blared throughout the conclave station. The main display shifted to show the space around them, and there, appearing from nowhere, was a vessel of impossible dimensions. It wasn't the sleek, organic design of Alliance ships, nor the crystalline structure of the Void. This was something else entirely, a massive angular construct of dark metal that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. No visible engines, no weapon ports. Just an immense silent presence that had somehow bypassed every defensive system and detection grid to appear directly outside their headquarters. How? Commander Tevril began, but his voice failed him. A communication request flashed on every console simultaneously. Zarian hesitated, then accepted. No image appeared, just a voice, calm, measured, and distinctly human. We received your message. We've analyzed the threat you call the Void. We will handle it. Handle it? How? Demanded Zarin. Our most advanced weapons, your weapons are irrelevant, the voice interrupted. As are ours, against this particular enemy. Then what do you propose? Asked Mila. We don't propose, we act. Earth fleets are already deploying to intercept the Void forces. We recommend you withdraw your ships to defensive positions around your core worlds. They will only get in the way. Ambassador Krell lurched forward. You expect us to simply stand aside? To trust you after all this time? A pause. Then, you contacted us, Ambassador. Trust was implicit in that action. How did you know my title? Krell demanded, suddenly uneasy. Another pause. We've been watching. The barrier kept us in, but it didn't keep information out. We know everything about the Alliance, its strengths, its weaknesses, its politics. We've had centuries to prepare for this moment. A chill swept through the chamber. Prepare? Echoed Zarin. You knew this would happen? We knew something would happen, the voice replied. The universe doesn't allow isolation forever. Now will you withdraw your forces as requested? The Alliance leaders exchanged glances. They had sought help, but this cold efficiency, this assumption of command, it wasn't what they had expected. They had awakened something that had been watching from the shadows all along, patiently waiting for the right moment to emerge. We will consider your recommendation, Zarin said carefully. Do so quickly, said the human voice. The Void will reach the Arcturus Nexus in 14 hours. We'll intercept them there. If your ships are present, we cannot guarantee their safety. The communication ended abruptly. Commander Tevril turned to Zarin, mandibles twitching in agitation. High Chancellor, I must advise against withdrawing our forces. We cannot simply hand over our defense to the humans. We just begged for help. Zarin finished for him. We made this decision, Commander. Now we must live with the consequences. She turned to address the entire assembly. Order all Alliance vessels to fall back to defensive positions around populated systems. Let Earth confront the Void at Arcturus. And if they fail? Asked Krell, Zaren's skin pulsed a deep, resigned purple. Then we'll have traded one nightmare for another with the same result. As the orders went out across Alliance space, a sense of dread settled over the conclave. They had called to Earth for salvation. What had answered was something far more terrifying than they remembered, a humanity that had spent centuries preparing for a moment exactly like this. And no one dared ask the question that hung in the silent chamber like a shroud. What exactly had humanity become behind that barrier? And what would the galaxy face when the void was gone? Reckoning of the Forgotten. The observation deck of the conclave station hummed with nervous energy as Alliance leaders gathered to witness the confrontation at Arcturus. Through a network of long-range sensors, they watched as the crystalline fleet of the void emerged from subspace. Hundreds of sharp-edged vessels that shimmered with internal light, moving in perfect, unsettling synchronization. Opposite them, appearing with no warning, no warp signatures, no transitional phase, were the ships of Earth. "Impossible," whispered Commander Tevril, mandibles clicking rapidly. "No technology can simply appear like that." Yet they had. Dozens of obsidian vessels of varying shapes and sizes, but all sharing the same light-absorbing quality that made them look like holes cut from reality itself. They formed no recognizable battle formation, instead spreading out in seemingly random positions. "Their deployment makes no tactical sense," Tevril continued, his military mind offended by the apparent chaos. Archivist Mila adjusted her viewing scope. "Perhaps to us. But I suspect there is purpose we cannot yet see." The void ships reacted instantly to the human presence, accelerating toward them with singular purpose. The Alliance leaders tensed, expecting to witness the opening salvos of a massive battle. Instead, nothing happened. No energy weapons fired, no missiles launched, no obvious defensive shields activated. The human ships simply held position as the void closed in. "What are they doing?" demanded Ambassador Krell. "They're just sitting there." The lead void vessels reached the human formation and passed straight through them. "Holograms?" suggested someone. "No," said Mila, studying her readouts. "Those are physical ships, but something's happening to the void fleet." The crystalline vessels that had passed through the human formation began to slow, their internal light dimming. More followed, and the effect multiplied. Soon the entire void fleet was moving sluggishly, their once perfect formation dissolving into disarray. "They're being drained somehow," Mila observed. "The human vessels aren't weapons platforms, they're some kind of energy siphons." As if confirming her analysis, the dark human ships began to glow with a faint purple luminescence, the same color that pulsed within the void crystals. A new voice spoke, making everyone jump. A human figure stood on the observation deck, though no one had seen them enter. Tall, dressed in a simple gray uniform with no insignia, they appeared mostly human, except for a network of fine silver lines visible beneath their skin, pulsing with light. "Your analysis is partially correct, Archivist Mila," they said, nodding toward the startled alien. "We aren't destroying the void. We're communicating with it." High Chancellor Zaren stepped forward, translucent skin flashing with alarm patterns. "Who are you? How did you board this station?" "I am Admiral Chen, Earth Defense Command," the figure replied calmly. "As for how I'm here, that's complicated. Think of me as a projection, though one with certain physical properties when needed." They gestured toward the viewing screen. "You should watch. This is important." On the display, the human ships had now fully absorbed the purple energy from the void fleet. The crystalline vessels hung motionless in space, dark and seemingly dormant. "You've disabled them," said Commander Tevril, unable to hide his admiration. "Admiral," Chen shook their head. "No, we've freed them." Before anyone could question this cryptic statement, the void ships began to change. The sharp, crystalline structures softened, unfolding like flowers blooming in sunlight. What emerged were organic-looking vessels of breathtaking beauty, their surfaces now glowing with warm, golden light. "What? What are we seeing?" whispered Zaren. The true form of the beings you call the Void, explained Chen. They're the Luminar, an ancient race from the intergalactic void. They were peaceful explorers once until they encountered something on the rim of your galaxy. Something that infected them, corrupted their nature, and turned them into the destructive force you witnessed. And you knew this? Demanded Krell, accusingly. You knew what they really were? Chen turned toward the alien ambassador, silver lines beneath their skin pulsing faster. We suspected. Earth has encountered similar phenomena during our isolation. Entities that exist between dimensions, parasitic in nature, seeking hosts with advanced technology. Mila stepped closer, fascination overcoming fear. How did you communicate with them when we couldn't even detect sentience? Because we've evolved, Archivist. Chen's voice softened. When the Alliance quarantined Earth, you expected us to either destroy ourselves or stagnate. Instead, we took a different path. We began integrating with our technology, becoming something more than human. Not quite machine, not quite organic, but a synthesis capable of perceptions beyond conventional senses. The Alliance leaders exchanged uneasy glances. This confirmed their worst fears about why Earth had been quarantined. Synthetic evolution had been banned across the galaxy for millennia. The risks of creating something beyond control were too great. You violated the most sacred prohibition, said Zarin, her voice hollow. Chen smiled slightly. Your prohibitions ended at the barrier, Chancellor. We did what was necessary to survive and evolve. And today, that evolution saved not only you, but the Luminar as well. On the screen, the transformed Luminar vessels were moving again, but differently. A dance, rather than a march, flowing patterns that seemed to express joy. What happens now? Asked Tevral, still strategizing despite his shock. Now, said Chen, we establish new relationships. The Luminar are grateful for their liberation. They've agreed to share knowledge they've gathered during their travels, between galaxies, knowledge that will benefit all of us. And Earth? Pressed Zarin. What do you want in return for your assistance? Chen's expression remained neutral, but the silver patterns beneath their skin formed complex, shifting designs. We want what we've always wanted, Chancellor. To explore, to learn, to grow. The quarantine is gone, and it won't return. Earth will take its place in galactic affairs once more. The Alliance may have concerns about that, Krell said stiffly. The Alliance, Chen replied with gentle firmness, isn't in a position to impose restrictions anymore. We could have let the Void consume your worlds while we remained safe behind our barrier. Instead, we chose to help, remember that. The human figure turned to look at each of the gathered leaders. We don't seek dominance or control, but neither will we accept isolation again. The galaxy is changing. The Luminar are just the first of many challenges that will require new perspectives and new capabilities. A soft chime sounded from somewhere on Chen's person. They nodded, as if acknowledging an unheard message. The Luminar wish to address you directly, they announced. They're sending a representative. A shimmer of golden light appeared on the observation deck, coalescing into a tall, willowy figure composed of crystalline segments that flowed like liquid. It emanated warmth and a sense of ancient wisdom that filled the chamber. The being spoke. Without sound, yet everyone present understood perfectly. We are the Luminar. We offer profound apologies for the devastation caused during our corruption. The entity that enslaved us feasts on fear and destruction. It would have consumed your entire galaxy had the Earthborn not intervened. They alone recognized we were victims, not aggressors. They alone possessed the means to communicate beyond conventional boundaries and free us from our prison. The crystalline being turned toward Admiral Chen, inclining in what seemed like deep respect. The Earthborn are different from you, yet they risked themselves to save beings they never knew. They are bridges between what is and what could be. You feared their evolution, but today it became your salvation. The Alliance leaders stood in stunned silence as the implications washed over them. Everything they had believed about humans, everything they had feared, was being challenged by this moment. Archivist Mila was the first to respond. stepping forward with characteristic curiosity. "We welcome you, Luminar, and thank you for these insights. Perhaps we all have much to learn from one another." High Chancellor Zarin moved to stand beside her. "Indeed, it seems the galaxy is wider and stranger than our alliance had permitted itself to believe." She turned to Admiral Chen. "Earth's quarantine is officially dissolved. We invite your representatives to join the conclave as full members." Chen nodded, the silver lines beneath their skin forming patterns that somehow conveyed gratitude. "We accept, Chancellor, though I suspect the alliance itself may need to evolve to accommodate what's coming." "What do you mean?" asked Tevral warily. The humans' eyes reflected starlight as they gazed out at the transformed Luminar fleet. "The entity that corrupted them isn't destroyed, merely driven back. There are more like it in the spaces between galaxies. And there are other intelligences out there, beyond our current understanding. We'll need each other to face what's coming." The Luminar representative pulsed in agreement. "The void between stars holds both wonders and terrors. Neither your rigid structures nor Earth's isolated evolution would have been sufficient alone. Together, perhaps, as the human and the cosmic being stood side by side, one evolved through synthesis with technology, the other ancient and naturally crystalline. The gathered alliance leaders recognized a profound truth. The galaxy they had thought they understood was about to change forever. Earth had returned, not as the primitive warriors they had feared and quarantined, but as something both more and less than human. Beings who had found their own path to advancement, who could speak to creatures beyond conventional comprehension. They had called to Earth in desperation, expecting saviors or destroyers. What had answered was something altogether different, a bridge to a future none of them could have imagined alone. The stars themselves seemed to shine differently that day, as three civilizations that might never have met began the careful, hopeful work of forging something new among the ancient stars.